What's going on? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to do a video talking about the recent Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis press conference, what I think about that fight, the trash talk and banter going back and forth, and ultimately how I think UFC 305 is going to shape out. Let's get right into the video. And if you haven't subscribed, just please subscribe if you haven't, because I know that 99% of people who watch don't subscribe, and it would mean a lot if you guys drop a comment, subscribe on the video. That's the best way to show your support. Thank you guys so much. Let's jump right into the video. Recently, there was a UFC 305 press conference that involved Dricus du Plessis, Israel Adesanya, Kai Kara-France, and Steve Erceg, where they kind of talked prior to their fight and everything going on. And this was the first face-off that we've seen with Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya since UFC 290, where Dricus du Plessis beat Robert Whittaker at International Fight Week in Las Vegas. And the first thing I had to say is, one, Israel Adesanya did not look as tall as I thought he would. And that was something that I guess Israel Adesanya came out and said that Dricus du Plessis was wearing platforms after that, which I thought was funny. But even then, I still don't think that he's going to be as tall as everyone perceived him to be. And the second thing is Dricus du Plessis had a very slick comeback and remark that's been going all over Twitter, that he said that Israel Adesanya's new hobby of golf is a very nice hobby, considering that it is a retirement hobby. And after this fight, he is going to retire Israel Adesanya. Now, the fight between Izzy and Dricus is a very interesting fight. I've got into it on some other videos, but this video being titled this, I want to get into it a little bit more. I think that Izzy's striking is going to be something that really throws off Dricus du Plessis, but his biggest asset, as I've always said, is Dricus's IQ and ability to change on the go. We all know that Dricus du Plessis is able to make adjustments in the corner on a dime and be able to do stuff to where he can manipulate the fight in order to win. You look at the Sean Strickland fight, where he did change up his strategy and do everything else that he needed to do, while getting the win over Sean Strickland at UFC Toronto in UFC 297. But ultimately, this is going to be such a hard fight for Dricus du Plessis because of Israel Adesanya's counter-punching ability. Sean Strickland really isn't a counter-puncher, and that was something that Dricus du Plessis could take advantage of. But you look at the Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya fight, and Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis are a very similar stylistic matchup, although Dricus is bigger, and I think Robert's a little bit faster and polished on the feet. But this is going to be a fight where Dricus du Plessis needs to get the takedown, and ultimately that's going to be what's going to secure him the victory. And I think that the takedown for Dricus du Plessis is something that is going to frustrate Israel Adesanya as well as tire him out, and that is something you need to be able to do. Coach Eric Nixon, when Sean Strickland fought Israel Adesanya, was all about Adesanya snake charming him, and that was something that I really adhered to, especially since that Sean Strickland was starting to get in there and play Izzy's game, and once he snapped out of that, he was able to take control of the fight after that second round. And Dricus du Plessis needs to stay disciplined, and he needs to stay active within the UFC octagon against Israel Adesanya to get those takedowns, to not throw very wild punches and stay conservative, just so he can be able to stay on his own. Next thing I want to get into is just the shape out of the card. From what I know, I only know of two fights on the card, and those were the two fights going into the press conference: the Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg, and the Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis fight. But and the other fight I do know is Jairzinho Rozenstruik is fighting Tai Tuivasa, which is the Battle of the Blobs, which we all love. But ultimately, this card needs to get a little bit heavier. I do think a Dan Hooker addition to this card would be incredibly awesome. If you get a Dan Hooker versus Charles Oliveira fight, that would be an incredible fight. You get Dan Hooker versus Rafael Vaziev, that would be another incredible fight. But I think either one of those are going to be something that is super, super, super good. Lastly, I want to do a little prediction for a fight between Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, and I do think that Dricus gets the job done. I think that IQ is going to be so useful in this fight with Israel Adesanya, and that is something that a lot of people are overlooking with Dricus du Plessis. His fight against Sean Strickland is something that I always go to. His film study against Robert Whittaker, who was kind of the boogeyman in the division. Besides, he would have been the champion. It's like Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman at welterweight. Colby Covington would be the UFC welterweight champion if Kamaru Usman wasn't there at the time, and Robert Whittaker would be the undisputed champion for a long reigning period at UFC middleweight if Israel Adesanya wasn't in the UFC. But Dricus du Plessis is going to be able to use that ability and use everything that he has to be able to get the takedown, and ultimately I think mix it up enough to really bang out a five-round war against Israel Adesanya. I don't know how exciting this fight is going to be. I'm hoping it's exciting. I'm always optimistic in going into these fights, but I do think that Dricus du Plessis gets the job done. I do think it is and still, and Dricus du Plessis can go and fight someone like the rematch of Sean Strickland or get a rematch with Robert Whittaker. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. If you enjoy the content, please leave a like and subscribe. I tried to also respond to as many comments as possible. So if you guys want to have some UFC conversations in the comments down below, I try to do my best to respond to as many as possible. I truly enjoy responding to comments to you guys. So please leave them down below. And I love talking to you guys. If you, like I said, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And I will catch you guys very soon with new UFC content and news.